The Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250, 94.5 FM. I'm Jason Minix. Joe Reinagel from Ken's TV, new co-host here on The Blitz.
And great to be here, man. I'm having such a good time. This is great, and looking forward to many fun days ahead.
And they always get funner Mondays at 5:30. Mondays with the Moose. Daryl Johnston, Fox analyst, three-time Super Bowl champion with the Cowboys, joining us now. Daryl, hope you had a great New Year's.
I did. How was yours?
That was fantastic. Great holiday season up until yesterday when I was at Jerry World watching the Cowboys lose to the Arizona Cardinals.
In person, huh?
I did. I did. It was, somebody tweeted me earlier about, that's 2 games in a row. I was at the Broncos game and I was at yesterday's game.
Maybe you should stop going.
Yeah, but I'm 3-2 this year inside the stadium, or 2-2. I forget. I mean, but again, though, I mean, It is frustrating when you make the effort to go to the game as opposed to from your recliner and you see an offensive performance like that.
Yeah. It's they're really hard to figure out, and that's been their pattern during the course of the season. One of the things I was not aware of is Kyler Murray has never lost at AT&T from high school to college to the pros. So I wish I would have known that in our pool. It might have swayed me the other way a little bit.
Daryl, this is Joe, but, going into that game yesterday, the Cowboys are coming off a great performance against the Washington football team, and you figured they kind of righted the ship. Honestly, I know Arizona needed a win. They were a desperate ball club, but it just seemed like Arizona came in and out-physicaled the Cowboys, especially in that first half.
Yeah, and that's something that was surprising. Just the style of play and what Cliff has them doing in Arizona, to me, it lends towards kind of an off-schedule backyard style of play, which is tough to be physical. There have been times this year when they've really kind of committed to the run game, and you can see a little bit of it. I'm good friends with Sean Kugler, who's the offensive line coach for Arizona, and I know his background and his style and what he wants to be able to do. So I've always been surprised that they don't run it a little bit more from time to time. Just to have that physical component to the offense to go along with everything else. But yeah, that was the surprising thing to me was, after the Washington game and just being on an emotional high and really kind of being able to put all the naysayers to rest that was all 3 phases. That was great complimentary football. And we're back on track just in time to get ready to make a playoff push. And then you come out and have a performance like that with only 1 game to go in the regular season to kind of get it all corrected. So, that's not the one I was worried about. I was more worried about Philly with a lot on the line to play. So this is going to be interesting down the stretch for Dallas.
1 more game to go. I thought it was interesting that Mike McCarthy said today that they're going up to Philly to win the game, and he's not resting anybody. And, and it's meaningless now for both teams. So meaningless it got flexed to a Saturday night as opposed to Sunday. But I don't know. I don't know if they should rest players or not. I mean, Zeke doesn't look healthy. But then again, if he's only going to get 9 carries, then you might as well run him. And that's the thing with Daryl. I look at this Cowboys team, and we've talked about it a lot throughout the season. The identity of this team, they tell us, is a power running football team first. Yet yesterday they ran 17 total rushes, 5 of those by Dak Prescott.
Yeah, the actions don't follow the words from time to time. And for me, it's in the red zone. It's always been one of those things. And I was surprised to find out earlier in the year, they had kind of, swung back to the point where they were running it a little bit more in the red zone. But that's where I'd like to see him be physical. And I know we, like you pointed out, Jason, we've talked about this a bunch during the course of the season. And we've kind of pleaded a little bit, hey, let Tony Pollard get on a roll there. And then he gets hurt. But still, Corey Clement's a good back. There's ways around this to try and get people healthy, and I respect all of them for lining up and wanting to play and knowing that they're not going to be at their best, but still feeling that even at 85%, I can be a positive for the team. So I get what they're thinking, and sometimes I was that way as well. You've got to protect the player from himself, and I think that there was just an opportunity there. About 6-7 weeks ago to really kind of lighten the load on Ezekiel for a little while, when Tony was healthy and try and get him back a little bit quicker. Because the last thing you want is him carrying a little bit of a nick into the postseason because, that's when it's going to be very important. And if you make it all the way to Lambeau and you're in the championship game, you're going to need to have some type of running component that day. You're going to need to be able to run the football efficiently. So, that's definitely something that they've got to get remedied before they get into the postseason.
Daryl, I know it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, and we talk about this and that, and why does this happen and why does that happen? But when I look at Dak Prescott, I just don't see the same Dak Prescott we saw back in September before the calf injury. Do you see it that way? Do you see that maybe there's just something off with that guy?
I do. And I'm not sure. You see some of the ball sail a little bit. You see some of them, kind of short hop in. In the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, everything was spot on. His location was outstanding. Hitting guys in stride, a very, very catchable ball, confidence to throw into tight windows. I've said this all season long. I was so impressed with him in the pocket, kind of with his subtle moves of staying in a little box and keeping the entire field open to him, as opposed to breaking out to his right or to his left and cutting that field in half. And I really haven't seen him get back into that rhythm that he had the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season since that calf injury, since he's come back. And, to me, that was one of the things that I was most impressed with this season, because it's really the thing that sets Tom Brady apart. And it's one of the things that young quarterbacks, even a guy like Zach Wilson, we had Jets-Bucks this past weekend, and Zach Wilson will watch Tom Brady, even though they play the game very differently from the quarterback position, because he wants to see, how he maneuvers that pocket in tight spaces. He wants to see, how he always has the solution for the out. So he never takes the sack. He never takes the negative play. He can get that ball into an area where it's not intentional grounding. He doesn't make the mistakes from the pocket. And that's something that he's excelled at his entire career. And it was something that I was really, really impressed with Dak Prescott at the beginning of the year. And I just haven't seen him get back to that level of confidence inside that pocket.
Daryl Johnston joining us here on the Blitz. And Daryl, as we try to figure out what's going on with Zeke and Pollard in the run game and Dak and, where he's at, does it come down to this offensive line isn't as good as we thought it was coming in?
Well, Tyron has been carrying injuries for several years now. So, he played at such an elite level for so long that it was, kind of hard for Tyron to play to that level, at this stage of his career. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing. You're getting some pressure. I mean, you used to be able to just, hey, we're good at left tackle. We don't have to, even if it's a big time edge rusher coming off that side, we're good. He's got that locked down. And when you can do that as an offensive coordinator, we don't have to worry about the blind side of your quarterback. It is such a luxury. Lyle Collins has not, kind of taken that next step from last season. Zach Martin, is probably the most consistent guy of the five, but he's similar to Tyron. He played at such an elite level early in his career. It's just been hard for him to maintain that. And then they've really, kind of struggled at left guard still. Biotish is up and down at center. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. We see the individual components and you hope that when they go together as a starting five, they're even better. But they haven't played to that level this year. And that's going to be the key. That's the saving grace for Tampa Bay, with Godwin out and them trying to figure out exactly, what they're going to do at wide receiver, who's going to be the running back on third down to spell Leonard Fournette. The one thing they've got is a starting five that's pretty darn good. I mean, they've got 3 Pro Bowlers and a Pro Bowl alternate there in Tampa Bay. So you can kind of see back what Dallas used to be, several years ago, and what Tampa Bay has right now, where there's other issues going on within your offense, but that offensive line makes everything okay. Where right now, as they struggle to find the rhythm in the running game, protection in the pocket, they can't lean on that offensive line as much. They're not playing at that level that they were just a few years ago.
Daryl, I've heard Kellen Moore being criticized a little bit for his play calling and some of the things, but knowing what you just said about the offensive line and finding a rhythm, does that make it tough on an offensive coordinator to try and figure out what is going to work from game to game?
It really is. Having had a conversation, with some guys that I know in the NFL that have gone through kind of like similar times during the course of the season. It's a 3-4 week span where they've got guys out of the lineup and they've got to completely adjust their game plan, to account for that. Or you've got some teams that are struggling during the course of a rebuild and just, trying to turn that corner a little bit. And they've got to be very careful. And they'll get criticized for play calling because, hey, we're not stretching the field. Well, we can. Our offensive line won't hold up. Our guys can't win on the outside. So we can't play the game like some teams in the NFL can. And I think the fan bases get frustrated. And I think that, sometimes that happens with Dallas, because, we know what we want to do. We want to start running the football efficiently, start getting a few chunk runs, get to the play action, hit a couple of shots down the field. And we see that from time to time. But I think sometimes we get spoiled a little bit, and it's not as consistent as we would like, but the potential is always there. So that's the one thing that Dallas has that a lot of teams in the NFL don't. The ability to do that at any time. There's some teams that can only aspire to be what Dallas is offensively at some point, during the next 3 to 5 years. So it's a luxury for Dallas to be where they are. And I think that's why sometimes as fans, we get frustrated because we don't see them play at a level that we see them at from time to time on a more consistent basis.
Well, and I look at and I think about some of the play calling, or at least how the plays turn out and develop. When was the last time you saw the Cowboys take a bunch of shots downfield in a game, or play action pass to set it up? It's a lot of short passes. Dalton Schultz was targeted 10 times yesterday, by far the most on this Cowboys team. Everything seems to be underneath.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those situations where everything kind of comes through a cycle. We're coming off, maybe a little bit of a run where defensive coordinators were a little bit more aggressive, maybe a little bit more pressure based, willing to play a little bit more single high. Now with what's happened over the last couple of years, that cover 2 shell is coming back into play. And whether you're playing, match zone underneath, whether you're playing man-to-man underneath it, you've got a 2 shell coverage, on the back end. And that really makes it hard to hit those big plays down the field. And it's just something that's become very, very popular in the NFL. And it's very, very frustrating because really what they're doing is they're challenging you to be patient. We're not going to give you the cheap one over the top. We're going to see if you can be a patient offense and check the ball down and, work the middle of the field, work the underneath, run the football. And then we're going to challenge you because we feel at some point you'll make a mistake. You'll have a holding penalty. You'll jump off sides. Somehow you're going to put yourselves behind the chains, and then we can dictate to you with maybe a little bit more pressure. But the big thing that's happening with the NFL now, especially to a quarterback like Dak Prescott, like Tom Brady, like Aaron Rodgers, all the top quarterbacks in the NFL, it seems to be, more the approach of, hey, we're going to make you check everything down, and we're going to test your patience because we're not going to let somebody get behind us deep.
Okay, Moose, you said you guys called the Bucs-Jets game yesterday. What in the world were you thinking when you saw Antonio Brown running off the field?
I didn't realize it was Antonio Brown at first. I thought we just had a fan that had come onto the field, and all of a sudden you see that he's got football pants on. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. I've never seen anything like that. And we were able to get kind of bits and pieces of film of what happened. And you started to put things together. I still haven't had an opportunity to follow up today to hear what Coach Arians said, to hear, what Byron Leftwich said, to hear what Tom Brady said about the situation. I saw Tom yesterday and really, as classy as Tom is, the most important thing is, we're more worried about Antonio Brown as a person right now more than a teammate. We want to make sure that he gets the help that he needs. But it was the most bizarre thing I have ever seen happen on a football field. And the crazy thing is that was one of the most important things for Tampa Bay to accomplish in their game yesterday, was to solidify the starting 3 wide receivers so Tom can get comfortable the last 2 games of the season before they go into the playoffs. So who is going to be the guy that fills in for Chris Godwin, and what role will Antonio Brown have? And he just blew that whole thing up yesterday. So, that was the surprising thing to me is as a guy coming off of a 10 catch, 100+ yard performance the week before, where your quarterback, who's considered the greatest player at the position in the history of the game, threw the ball to you over 50% of the time. So obviously, there's a role for you to try and win another Super Bowl. And something happened that made you respond that way is just the most bizarre thing that I've ever seen. And I can't even comprehend what transpired on their sideline to get him to that point mentally where he thought that was an appropriate thing to do.
And again, Bruce Arians not wanting to answer a lot of questions after the game. And even today, Schefter is reporting that they did not actually release Antonio Brown today. Ongoing discussions with the NFL with how do you move forward with this situation? And Arians apparently said that's the GM's responsibility. He's just not coming back in the locker room. And you're right. I mean, none of us have ever seen anything like that. As many games as I've done play-by-play for, you're in the booth and you're kind of ready for everything live. I don't know that anybody could be ready for what transpired there. You just let the cameraman do the work and let that tell the story.
Yeah. And for me, the worst thing you can have in your locker room is self-inflicted adversity, because it's going to be challenging enough during the course of the regular season and going into the playoffs, just based on what happens during an NFL season. And, we've seen that with Kansas City. We've seen that, with Dallas. We've seen that with a number of teams in the NFL. And there's going to be times where you've got to fight through that adversity, and hopefully you're better when you come through the other side. But you don't want it to be something that's within your own control. And that was the thing for me is Antonio Brown. He was not a good teammate. And, I place a very, very high priority on being around good people and having good teammates. And the reason why is you don't want to have to deal with situations that are self-inflicted. And that's exactly what happened. Right now in Tampa Bay, you're talking about everything but the fact that you found a way to win, even though it was the New York Jets. The New York Jets came out and played a pretty darn good football game. And they were in a position to win that game. And as a team in the course of a rebuild, you find creative ways to lose games. And unfortunately, the Jets did that again yesterday. But, Tampa Bay did a heck of a job, finding a way to win that game. There's a lot of positives that could have come out of that. But what they're talking about today has nothing to do with that. And that's the worst thing. And that happened to us on occasion during our time playing. And
yeah,
as a player, the one thing you don't want to have happen is you're talking about things that have nothing to do with the game of football. And that's the number one question that you're getting during the course of the week. And it's very frustrating.
I think, you just kind of touched on it, underscore there. You think about some of the stories that came out with those 90 Cowboys while you guys were winning a bunch of Super Bowls. There were a lot of interesting stories that had nothing to do with the football team that you guys somehow had to circle around. But what you didn't have was a guy quit in the middle of a game. Inside that locker room, you could rally around your teammate because he was a good teammate going through something that was making the news. But ultimately, you had a good teammate. What Antonio Brown did yesterday, it's just bizarre. And until we hear from Antonio, because, we're hearing so many different stories now. Was he one is he told them, I can't play, my ankle is hurt. They say, you're healthy, get out there, get out of here. And so he left. And who knows if that's true, but it was just extremely bizarre. I can't imagine being in the booth for that one.
Yeah, he was definitely carrying an ankle, and it was a game time decision. I did not see anything during the course of the game when he was playing that would have indicated to me that the ankle, had gotten to a point where he was not going to be effective. There was nothing that was done, up until the point he chose to leave the field, where it was maybe better to have Cyril Grayson in the game than Antonio Brown, or Tyler Johnson in the game as opposed to Antonio Brown. He still seemed to be, from the coach's perspective, the best opportunity for them to have success in the passing game. So, yeah, there was nothing there that showed that ankle might have been bothering him a little bit more. But he was, questionable during the course of the week with an ankle, and then it was supposed to come down to a game time decision, and he was ready to go. So if he aggravated it during the game and got that type of information, I know the staff in Tampa Bay pretty well. I know how trainers are in the NFL. They may challenge you, to try and work through it, but they would never tell you either get out there on the field or get off the field. That just, that doesn't happen in today's NFL.
He is the Moose. Daryl Johnston, former Cowboy, 3-time Super Bowl champ, now an analyst with Fox Sports, and on with us every Monday for Mondays with the Moose. Daryl, always appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Daryl.
You got it. Look forward to it. Take care, guys.
Appreciate it. The Moose, Daryl Johnston, joining us here on the Blitz. And you think about it, and James Pledger was texting us during the thing. Dude, he played on the 90s Cowboys. He's seen some crazy.
He's seen it all.
He has been through it.
And he was shocked at what he saw yesterday. So that tells you everything you need to know.
It certainly does. It is the Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250, 94.5 FM. He's Joe Reinagel, new co-host here on the Blitz.
Yay!